The sky had turned a pale, heavy gray by the time Caleb arrived at the little red house tucked into the edge of the Appalachian woods. The gravel road hissed beneath his tires as he pulled up to the porch. Pine needles clung to the windshield. His arms ached from the 8-hour drive. The house wasn't on any maps, but it had been listed online. Room for rent, month to month. Quiet, private. It was exactly what he needed. Caleb's fingers clenched the steering wheel, reluctant to move. You need this, he reminded himself. Get your shit together. No more couch surfing. No more sleepless nights under fluorescents. In the Walmart parking lot, he reached for the keys. The screen door creaked before he even got out. She was already on the porch. Caleb? Her voice was soft, warm, southern, but faint. She wore a blue wool cardigan despite the heat, buttoned tight around a frame that looked like it hadn't eaten a full meal in weeks. Her long gray hair was braided neatly over one shoulder, and her eyes, pale like sea glass, glinted with something he couldn't place. He stepped out and nodded. Yes, ma'am. Miss Linda? That's me. She smiled, though it never quite reached her eyes. You found the place. Yeah, he thought, almost like it found me. The room was upstairs, small but clean. A narrow twin bed pressed against the far wall. Old-fashioned quilt tucked military tight. A wooden desk with peeling varnish. A little mirror that had long since lost its shine. You'll have the house to yourself during the day, Linda said, her voice muffled slightly as she stood in the hallway behind him. I keep to the garden most mornings. You'll hear the wind chimes before you smell the rosemary. Caleb turned. The rosemary? She tilted her head, smiling faintly. It keeps things peaceful. That first night, Caleb heard the wind chimes around 2:17 a.m. He awoke in sweat, shirt stuck to his chest. The air was thick, warm despite the box fan wheezing at the window. Shadows pulsed faintly on the ceiling like they were breathing. He sat up, his pulse skipping. Chimes? But there wasn't any breeze, just the whisper of something. No, someone, moving downstairs. Floorboards creaked in slow, rhythmic intervals. One step, pause, another, then a voice, hushed and humming. He strained to hear, heart pounding. It was a melody he didn't recognize, but the cadence was familiar. A lullaby. Nope. He lay back, eyes wide, forcing himself to breathe evenly. This is just what happens when you crash too hard after running too long. Hallucinations, auditory echoes. He'd had them before, only now they had a song. The next morning, Miss Linda was already in the kitchen when he came down, stirring something in a tin pot. She moved with graceful, measured intent. No radio played. No chimes clattered. The house felt ordinary. You didn't mention the wind chimes at night, he said. She didn't look up. They sing when there's something nearby. It's good they sang. Means they're doing their job. He tried to laugh, but it came out thin. And what would that be? She finally looked at him. Her expression didn't change. Keeping the dead where they belong. Caleb blinked. For a second he just stared at her. Keeping the dead where they belong? The words hung in the air like incense, faintly perfumed with something floral and old, too old. Miss Linda turned away, humming as she ladled something thick and brown into a bowl. Steam coiled like ghosts from the surface. You look pale, she said without turning. Eat something. He wanted to refuse, to laugh it off, to say something dismissive and casual like, I'm fine, thanks. But the edge in her voice wasn't an invitation. It was a tether. So he took the bowl. The first spoonful, stopped him cold. The texture was right, smooth, thick like lentils or split pea, but the taste, it wasn't right. Not exactly bad, but unsettling, earthy, metallic, like wet stone and rust and overcooked herbs. He forced a swallow. It's just roots, she said, answering the question he hadn't asked. From the garden. You have to boil the bitterness out. He nodded, forcing another bite. His stomach churned. That night, he went to bed early, but sleep didn't come. Every few minutes, he'd glance at the clock on his nightstand. 11:02, 11:39, 12:13. Don't think about the chimes, he told himself. But when 2:17 came, exactly 2:17, just like the night before, he heard them again. Software metallic, faintly melodic. And this time, the humming started before the footsteps. A low, warbling tune like something sung to a baby left too long in the crib. Something off-key, as if the voice singing it had once known joy, but forgotten how it felt. Caleb sat up slowly. The fan had stopped spinning. The air was heavy again. He reached for his phone. No signal. He rose, barefoot, feeling the cool wood beneath his soles. He crept to the hallway and looked down the stairs. The front door was open. The porch light flickered once, then stuttered out. He descended the steps one by one, his heart trying to convince him to stop. His hand trembled as he reached for the doorframe. Outside, the garden was still, but something moved just beyond the tree line. A figure, barefoot, wearing white. He stepped out onto the porch. The wind chimes clattered violently, though the trees didn't sway. The figure paused, then tilted its head back, like it was tasting the air. A face turned toward him, but it wasn't a face. Not really. Just skin. Pale. Featureless. Wet. Caleb stumbled back inside and slammed the door. He locked it, bolted it, and stood frozen, heart ricocheting off his ribs. Did it see me? He whispered aloud. Was it looking at me? He turned slowly. Linda stood at the base of the stairs, her silhouette unmoving. You opened the door, she said, voice flat. Why did you do that? I thought I saw something, Caleb said, his voice shaking. I thought someone was out there. Linda stepped forward. Her eyes were darker than he remembered, almost black. There are things here that want to come in. They knock with wind and smile through the keyholes. But they can't unless you open the door. Never open the door. He swallowed hard. What was that? But she was already walking away. Tomorrow, she said. You'll help me with the rosemary? He barely slept. Every sound, floor creak, branch scrape, house groan, stabbed through his chest like a warning. And when morning came, he found Miss Linda already outside, gloves on, a wide straw hat perched atop her silver braid. The garden looked different in daylight, normal even. Raised beds, clay pots, tomato cages, climbing with green. But there was a patch behind the house, round, sunken slightly, where the rosemary grew tall and dense like a hedge. The air around it smelled sharp, almost medicinal. Linda handed him clippers. We cut only what we need, never too much. The rosemary remembers. Caleb knelt and began snipping sprigs, breathing in the scent. It helped steady him, until he saw it, something under the plant roots, just beneath the surface of the soil, not white like bone, but gray, weathered, worn smooth, a fingertip. Caleb jerked back, nearly losing his balance. Linda didn't flinch. They don't rest easy, she murmured, but the rosemary keeps them dreaming. He stared at her. Is she serious? Is this real? But the look in her eyes said she wasn't joking, wasn't delusional either. She believed it, every word. That night, Caleb didn't wait for 2:17. He packed a bag, grabbed his keys, threw his phone into his pocket. But when he got to the front door, it was open again. Wind chimes screeched. This time the air reeked. Sweet rot and copper and smoke. The darkness outside shimmered like oil. And just beyond the threshold stood Miss Linda. Only she wasn't breathing, wasn't moving. Her eyes were wide, unblinking. Her lips were parted in a slack, twisted smile. "Stay," she whispered. Then the lights died. Caleb staggered backward from the door, his chest tight with dread, vision blurring as the wind chimes above shrieked like something in pain. Linda's figure stood motionless, framed in the doorway. Her hair hung limp over her shoulder, no longer braided. Her eyes, those pale, sea-glass eyes, were wrong now, clouded, lifeless. Her skin had taken on a grayish hue, the kind of color that doesn't belong to the living. "Linda," Caleb whispered, but his voice barely made a sound. His body was frozen, mind warring between flight and comprehension. She didn't blink, didn't breathe, yet she smiled, lazily, as if amused by his fear. "Stay." That single word echoed through the silence again, even though her lips didn't move this time. Then, a sound behind him. Something slithered. He turned fast. The hallway stretched like a tunnel now, warped and dim, light fading in the corners. A shadow shifted near the base of the stairs. Tall, humanoid, but wrong in its proportions. It didn't walk so much as fold forward, limbs bending like silk twisted in water. He stumbled back into the front room, eyes darting. The window. Just go through the damn window. But the glass was no longer glass. It rippled like liquid silver, distorting his reflection into a grotesque, eyeless grin. No way out. The shadow was closer now. Linda hadn't moved from the doorway, but her presence filled the house like fog. The scent of rosemary and rot was overpowering. His stomach turned. "I don't belong here," he whispered, mostly to himself. "I didn't ask for this." "You came here," a voice answered, but it wasn't hers. It was inside him, close and cold. "You found the door. You stepped over the roots. You let it in." Suddenly, footsteps above, a fast rhythm, circling the upstairs floorboards directly above his head. He froze. Then another set. Then a third, all circling, pacing. Something heavy dragged across the floor, slow and rhythmic, like fingernails on wood. Then, thump, directly over him. He looked up. The ceiling bulged. Something was pressing down from the other side, scraping, crawling, searching. He gasped and sprinted for the kitchen. The kitchen was not the kitchen anymore. It was darker, dustier, the colors all wrong, faded as if decades had passed overnight. The wood was cracked, wallpaper peeled and curled like dried skin. The stove was rusted over. Mold climbed the walls like veins. And at the center of the floor, a door, not to the outside, to the basement. It hadn't been there before, but it was open now. Just a crack, blackness seeping up the edges like blood from a wound. The humming returned. The lullaby, soft, like it was being sung from somewhere deep beneath the house. It wrapped around his spine like cold fingers. Go down. The thought pressed into his skull. Not a voice this time, just urge. His hand reached for the knob before he realized what he was doing. "No, no, no, no," he stammered, jerking back. But the humming grew louder. And now, behind him, he felt it. Not Linda, not the shadow, the thing from the garden. It had followed him inside. The smell hit first, earth and meat and something long decayed. Then the sound, wet breath, low and steady. And then a voice, not sung, not whispered, spoken. Director. You opened the door. He turned. The face from the woods was inches from his own now, if it could be called a face. No features, no eyes, just folds of skin that pulsed faintly, like lungs trying to remember how to breathe. He stumbled back and fell down the basement stairs. He crashed through cobwebs and dust, hitting the packed earth floor with a grunt. Silence, utter silence. Then, light. Not from a bulb, but from a lantern resting in the middle of the basement. Its flame flickered weakly, casting long shadows on the walls, and all around it, carved into the dirt, symbols, dozens of them, circles, crosses, lines etched deep into the ground. The scent of rosemary was thickest here. He rose slowly, heart hammering. The walls were covered in photographs, faded, yellowed, curled at the edges. Men, women, children, so many, all with their eyes scratched out. He stepped closer, breath caught in his throat. At the center of them all was one photo. Linda, standing in front of this same house, holding a baby. She was younger, so much younger, but the expression, that was the same. Beneath the photo, written in a looping, spidery hand, she was the door. Something moved behind him. He turned, raising the lantern. Miss Linda stood at the top of the stairs again, but this time, she was different. Her skin was intact, flushed with warmth, her eyes clear, hair shining silver in the low light. She looked alive. "I didn't mean to," she whispered, voice trembling. "I just wanted my son back." Caleb couldn't speak. "He died right after we moved here. Took sick, and they wouldn't bury him proper. Said it was a cursed land." She stepped down a single stair. But the house listened. The land listened. It said it could give him back. Caleb's throat tightened. "Linda, what did you do?" "I buried him under the rosemary." Another step. It kept him asleep. For a while. The bulging dirt. The thing in the garden. "You opened the door," she said again, voice breaking. "You let him wake up." The lantern flickered. The humming started again. This time, a scream wrapped in melody. From beneath the floor, he rose. The earth cracked. Hands reached up. Caleb doesn't remember climbing the stairs. Doesn't remember bursting through the door, running past Linda, who simply stood still and watched him go. He ran through the woods until dawn burned through the trees. Never looked back. 2 weeks later, he tried to find the listing again. It was gone. No address, no pictures, no record. He searched county records, archives, maps. The little red house wasn't anywhere. Like it had never existed. Like it had never wanted to be found. But sometimes, when he lies awake at night in his new apartment, far from the mountains, far from the woods, he hears it. Not a voice, just a sound. Software metallic, faintly melodic, wind chimes, and something humming just beyond the walls.